The story of Final Fantasy XIV, Episode 2, The Primal Threat. In the last episode, we were introduced to the vibrant but troubled land of Eorzea, as well as the young woman, Explora, who has recently arrived there. She started in the city of Ul'dah, joined the Adventurers Guild and the Gladiators Guild, and quickly became involved in several plots. She earned herself a heroic reputation by foiling a smuggling scheme, helping to retrieve the Sultana's crown, and killing an Ascian, a mysterious but clearly nefarious individual. In doing so, she has earned the respect of a number of individuals, including General Rauban of the Immortal Flames, and a young man named Thancred, a charismatic scholar that knows far more than he's letting on. Additionally, Explora found a crystal that seems to have some connection with a spiritual entity named Hydaelyn, and it's possible that she is now some sort of chosen warrior of light, gifted with visions of past events. Explora was named as Rauban's personal envoy to the other city-states, and left Ul'dah on an airship to deliver his message to the other leaders. With all that in mind, let's continue. Explora arrives by airship in the coastal city of Limsa Lominsa, where she immediately meets with the city's leader, Merlvib Blofsvin, a former pirate. Explora delivers Rauban's message, stating that he wishes to hold a remembrance ceremony in honor of the 5-year anniversary of the calamity that brought Eorzea to its knees. With the Garlean Empire invading their lands, the leaders of the various city-states reforged their alliances to combat them. The leader of the Garlean military force, however, decided to bring down one of the planet's moons to purge Eorzea, which ultimately shattered open and revealed Bahamut, who scorched the land. Merlvib has never seen a battle like that one in all her years. She goes on to say that even though the calamity itself is 5 years past, Eorzea still has a great many problems, notably the threat of the Garleans and the threat of the Primals. Last episode, I mentioned that the various Beastmen tribes of Eorzea earned that title due to their religious differences from the other peoples of the land. This religious difference is in the form of Primals, who the different Beastmen tribes worship as deities. Each race of Beastmen worships a unique Primal, and without bogging you down in details at this point, these primals can manifest in the physical world under the right conditions. These deities are fairly dangerous in their own right, but the real threat is due to the effect that these primals have on the surrounding ether, the ambient energy of the world, responsible for everything from life to magic. Primals need enormous amounts of ether to manifest here, so they absorb it from their surroundings, which has a detrimental effect on the rest of the world. Things will become more clear as we go, but the beast tribes have been more active recently in trying to summon their primals, and this represents a big problem for the rest of Eorzea. Merlvib agrees to the memorial service, as the city-states of Eorzea need to remain unified in these trying times, and she hopes to recruit more people into the military force. Before departing, she tells Explora to give the elder Seedseer in Gridania her regards, and to tell her that the wolf has been sniffing around the stables. Explora hops back on the airship, flies to Gridania, and meets with the elder Seedseer, Khan Esena. Khan Esena greets her warmly and takes the message from Rauban. She then provides some more info about the Garlean Empire, which hails from the northern continent of Ilsabard. Garlemald, as it's known, was buried in obscurity for most of its history up until as recently as 50 years ago. They experienced a revolution in magitech technology, however, a type of machinery that's fueled by a rare substance called ceruleum. Most Garlean citizens cannot wield magic the way that many Eorzeans can, and so to compensate, they developed magitech, which allowed them to grow into a massive empire. Part of this success, however, is due to their emperor, the man who first founded the empire and still reigns over it, Solus Zosgalvis. There are rumors, however, that he is growing frail, and the matter of succession is causing some turmoil in Garlemald, which would explain why they haven't continued their invasion of Eorzea yet. The Garlean Empire does maintain a presence in Eorzea, though, with their 14th Imperial Legion, led by a man named Gaius van Baelzar. The phrase, "the wolf has been sniffing around the stables," means that Merlwyb believes the Empire may soon resume its advance, and Connie Senna agrees that it's time to unify once again. While leaving, Explorer is stopped by an officer of the Order of the Twin Adder, Gridania's Grand Company, who tells her that the proprietor of the tavern in Limsa Lominsa has a task for a capable adventurer, and recommends she check it out. No stranger to travel at this point, Explorer heads back to Limsa Lominsa and meets with Badaron at the Drowning Wench, who warns her that the job he has could be a little dangerous. Nevertheless, he informs her that some suspicious-looking individuals have been sighted sneaking in and out of a grotto to the north of the settlement of Aleport, the Sastasha Sea Grot. The two are interrupted by a Commodore of Limsa Lominsa's peacekeeping force, the Yellow Jackets. The Commodore is the one that is leading the investigation into Sastasha and stopped by to offer some more information. Recently, there have been several sightings of an unfamiliar vessel off the coast of Aleport, and although it hasn't been long since the Yellow Jackets checked out Sastasha and found little of note, the Commodore believes that it's worth another look. As the Yellow Jackets are spread thin due to the local Beastmen tribe, it falls on the shoulders of a capable adventurer to continue the investigation. In this case, Explora. The easiest way to get to Aleport is by ferry, so she hitches a ride and is told to check out the Hall of the Novice before heading into Sastasha. The Hall of the Novice is run by the Adventurers Guild in order to teach proper techniques to adventurers that are going to be working alongside others. Although Explora doesn't really think that she needs the advice, she completes the training courses because the guild hands out a snazzy set of armor to those that do. Newly equipped, she heads to the entrance to Sastasha, where a Yellow Jacket tells her that it's likely a group of pirates, the Serpent Reavers, have moved into Sastasha. The Serpent Reavers are a particularly bloodthirsty group that have allied themselves with the local beast tribe in the past, the fish-like Sahagin. Explorer recruits a few fellow adventurers and heads inside. This is certainly the greatest challenge she's faced thus far, and Explorer is glad to have some allies alongside her. She fights her way through the dank cave, at first battling only local wildlife, but after opening a secret passageway, she discovers the Serpent Reavers' hideout. She soon encounters the captain of the Reavers, Madison, but the man continues to flee through the hideout, eventually making it to the spawning grounds of the Sahagin. The Sahagin leader, Den the Orca-Toothed, is greatly displeased by Madison's intrusion and executes him before turning on Explora and her group. After a vicious battle, they manage to slay the Sahagin, successfully eliminating the threat in Sastasha. Explorer returns to Badaron, where she finds another group of adventurers who are lamenting that they were too slow on this mission, but wish Explorer good fortune regardless. Badaron is pleased to see her return safely, and is surprised to hear that the Sahagin were involved. Since Explorer handled the job so well, he offers her another, this time in Gridania, where she should speak with Mother Mioun. Explorer could just utilize the Aetheryte to teleport straight there, but each use of the Aetheryte necessitates paying a maintenance fee. This trip is far cheaper by airship, coincidentally, and Explorer has to be mindful of her purse. Regardless, she arrives in Gridania and makes for the Carline Canopy, where Mioun runs the local Adventurers Guild. She is pleased as punch to see Explorer, since there is some trouble that needs dealing with. Explorer is greeted by a man named Lewin, the leader of a group known as the God's Quiver, who function as scouts for Gridania. Nearby, beneath the area known as the Central Shroud, there is an underground burial site called the Tamtar Deepcroft. Recently, shadowy figures have been seen skulking around there, and the gods Quiver suspect that these individuals belong to a doomsday cult known as the Lambs of Dalamud. Dalamud is the name of the moon that the Garlean Empire brought down on Eorzea in the Calamity. Beforehand, the Lambs of Dalamud worshipped the moon, believing that it would deliver them from devastation. Now, since the moon exploded, they have become even more zealous, believing that all of us heretics interfered with the coming of their deity, and they seek to avenge Dalamud. Explorer is being sent in to ascertain what the Lambs of Dalamud are up to, and to eliminate the threat. She joins up with some more adventurers, and heads in. Sure enough, she does find plenty of crazed cultists, as well as some local wildlife, but more notably, she finds that the cultists have taken to summoning Voidsent to help them achieve their goals. I haven't really explained Voidsent much at this point, although that's partially because the game doesn't really explain them much at this point. Thinking of them as similar to demons will be fine for now. Explorer and her group move through the Deepcroft, bashing everything they come across and dismantling what seems to be some sort of dark magic ritual in the process. Despite their efforts, in the end they face off against a powerful Mind Flayer Voidsent that the cult has summoned, which is using the body of an ancient king as its host. After a harrowing battle in which the Mind Flayer attempts to rip their minds asunder, the group emerges victorious. Explorer returns to Miyun, who commends her on a job well done and passes along Lewin's thanks. Miyun is glad that she made it back in one piece, as many adventurers are not so lucky. They look over and see another group of adventurers, two of which are chastising the third for the loss of one of their group. Miyun says that scenes like that are far too common nowadays, and is glad that there are capable adventurers like Explorer around. Speaking of capability, she has heard of another task up for grabs from the Adventurers Guild in Ul'dah. Round and round she goes, heading back to Momodi at the quicksand. Momodi is glad to see her return to the city, and they are approached by the petitioner of the guild for this task, none other than Papa Shan. Papa Shan is really just relaying a petition from the Amagina and Sons mineral concern in relation to an unfortunate development at Copperbell Mines. Previously, Explorer helped out with a task near the mines that was due to the mines being closed because of an incident. Now, she learns that the incident in question is the fact that giants have seized control of the place. These giants were sealed inside of the deepest parts of the mines over 300 years ago. The giants were originally used as slave labor during that time, but they eventually revolted, and the revolt was shut down by purposefully collapsing part of the mines. Due to the increasing need for building materials in the region, the miners delved too greedily and too deep, and have inadvertently opened up the giants' prison. Rather than pondering the moral quandary of slaughtering a bunch of former slaves that have finally been released, Explorer takes the job. She heads out to the entrance to the mines, joins up with some others once again, and marches in. While the group does come across a few hostile giants which they put down, most of the threats in the mine come in the form of other creatures, such as coblins and spriggans. In order to continue on their way, the group utilizes some explosives in order to blow up some sections of the tunnel, and also use some explosives to deal with a particularly durable slime. Finally, Explorer encounters a rather ferocious giant, but he too falls, ending the giant's revolt once again. Returning to the quicksand, Explorer is interrupted by a scream from the streets outside. She rushes out to find a man yelling at a young woman, accusing her of stealing. The woman is one of the refugees of the Calamity that live outside of Ul'dah's walls, and she denies the theft. The man says that he should turn her over to the brass blades, but he'll avoid that if the woman agrees to be his servant, as ominous as that sounds. The woman calls out to Explorer for aid, seeing that she is clearly an adventurer, and whether she believes the woman's story or she just doesn't like this merchant, she steps in. A brawl ensues between Explora and the man's hired bodyguards, and she quickly mops the floor with them. The woman emphatically thanks Explora for rescuing her, but Explora suddenly grips her head and experiences another vision. The vision consists of two Uldan citizens discussing the refugee situation, as new refugees are continuing to arrive even 5 years after the calamity, due to more and more communities failing. They flock to Ulda because it has the greatest reputation for being prosperous, but the city isn't exactly booming. The men are concerned that many of the desperate refugees will turn to crime, and the city militia won't be able to handle it. The vision then shows the woman that Explorer rescued purchasing a product from the vendor, not stealing it. The vision ends, and Explorer informs the man that she saw the woman buying the item, with the rest of the crowd now rallying against the merchant. He runs off in anger, and the woman thanks Explorer again for her help before also walking off. Explorer is then approached by Thancred, who says that he has been watching her ever since she left Ulda, although he assures her that his intentions are always honorable. He compliments her on playing the part of a diplomatic envoy perfectly, although, truth be told, Explorer didn't really do much. He then says that she is quite a marvel, and he confesses that he is quite taken with her. Most of all, he was struck by her selflessness, a rare trait in these days, and says that she is the one he's been looking for. He also harbors an interest in her visions, as he knows a woman with the same talent and wants to introduce Explorer to her. The two of them are part of the same organization, and they would like Explorer to join as well. If she's interested, she should speak with Mamodi and ask her about the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. Explorer is interested and goes to Mamodi, who first congratulates her on handling the giant situation so well. The woman who is being chastised in Gridania approaches them and tells Explorer that the adventurer they lost was her betrothed, a man that had apparently heard of Explorer and had been inspired by her accomplishments. The woman has given a lot of thought to giving up adventuring since his death, but she is also inspired by Explorer and plans to return to her home village and start her training anew. When she leaves, Mamodi remarks that for a while she didn't know why anyone would bother with adventuring, as it's such a cruel business. Now she feels privileged to be a part of the adventurers' lives as a head of the guild. They finally move on to the topic of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, a group that Mamodi warns isn't ordinary and who don't do ordinary work. Explorer insists, and so Mamodi starts by saying that she can definitely trust the Scions, a group of people that have made it their mission to solve some of Eorzea's most pressing problems. They're not currently a large group, but they're recruiting, a task made more difficult due to the location of their headquarters being a secret. Mamodi tells her that the headquarters is in Vesper Bay, west of Horizon, in a building named the Waking Sands. Arriving in Vesper Bay and entering the Waking Sands, Explorer is greeted by a young female, Tataru. After introducing herself and explaining that she's here on the behest of Thancred, Tataru welcomes her to the headquarters of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. Someone with the title of Antecedent is waiting for Explorer further inside. Explorer continues on and enters a small room filled with a number of people.
Let me begin by telling you who we are and what we do. We are the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, an order that transcends political boundaries. Our single objective is the preservation of the future of Eorzea.
After explaining who the Scions are and what they do, the woman named Minfilia asks Explorer about her losses of consciousness and her visions.
Tell me, have you ever experienced a sudden, inexplicable loss of consciousness? Have you ever had the sensation of being pulled away from reality? Felt as though you were hovering in space, a mind without a body? All these things are the manifestations of your talent. Yours is the power to transcend the boundaries of the soul, a power known as the Echo.
The Echo doesn't let someone change events in the past, but they can witness them as if they were there. The Echo also lets someone know what a person is thinking, even if there is a language barrier. Minfilia also possesses the Echo, and laments that, despite the ability's power, they cannot use it whenever they wish. Moving on, Minfilia explains that the primary problem the Scions are currently dealing with is the Primal Threat, a problem that requires the aid of those possessing the Echo. Minfilia believes that the Echo is a gift from the gods given to those that will use it for a good purpose, and so she implores Explorer to aid the Scions.
I know not what it is you desire for yourself, nor what it was that first brought you to Eorzea. But I firmly believe that the power we possess was given to us for a purpose. Why else would the gods entrust man with a gift so extraordinary, if not to have him use it? And so I implore you, lend us your power.
There are certain benefits to joining the Scions, and Minfilia proceeds to sign some papers which allow Explorer to hire a personal retainer to handle various business arrangements. In return, she asks Explorer to aid them to the fullest extent of her talents. She also provides the Scions' secret passphrase, Wild Rose, which perhaps was a little hasty considering Explorer hadn't agreed to join yet. Nevertheless, Explorer does agree to join, and she proceeds to be introduced to the other members of the group. Minfilia first explains about the nation of Sharlayan, a nation of scholars to the north of Eorzea that had set up a research colony in Eorzea during the 6th Astral Era. When it became apparent that the Garlean Empire was planning on invading, most of the Sharlayans in the colony fled back home. Those few that remained behind to aid Eorzea became known as Archons. The other individuals in the room are all Archons, and Explorer is introduced to each of them.
The masked woman is Ida, and beside her is Popalimo. The two are charged with surveying the Twelveswood.
Hello there.
Welcome.
Okay, my turn to introduce someone. That there is Thancred.
He is our man here in Ul'dah, Jewel of the Desert.
Welcome to the team. I never doubted that you'd come. If I may, the lovely maiden beside me is named Y'shtola. Limsa Lominsa has the pleasure of being under her care.
Greetings. Last but not least is Urianger, who presides over all affairs within these halls. Pray seek him out whenever you have questions.
Dawn may banish even the darkest night. The words of a dear friend. I am glad of our meeting.
At the Battle of Carteneau, our leader was taken from us. But we did not stray from our purpose. We sought out Minfilia and others with her talent, and together established the Scions of the 7th Dawn.
Along with the Archons, those blessed with the Echo play a pivotal role in our endeavor to forge a brighter tomorrow for the realm. Oh, I should also introduce you to Tataru, our clerk. She ensures that everything runs smoothly.
Pleased to make your acquaintance.
In time, I hope you will come to think of us as family.
With the Archons operating across Eorzea, Minfilia running things in the Waking Sand, and Tataru working as their clerk, they're certainly not overflowing with members currently. Explorer is given her first task, submitted by Ul'dah's Immortal Flames. Some days ago, a caravan carrying crystals registered to Amagina and Sons Mineral Concern was attacked and ransacked. Shortly after this attack, a number of people were reported missing from the refugee camps outside of Ul'dah. This could just be a coincidence, but the Scions believe that this is instead the work of the Amalja, who are intending to summon their primal, the fire god Ifrit. Explorer is appointed to head up the investigation to help her better understand the primal threat, with the support of Thancred. The mining company have already doubled their security on caravans since the attack, so Thancred suggests they prioritize solving the abductions. The majority of the people missing were last seen around Camp Drybone, one of a number of refugee camps. The de facto leader of Camp Drybone is a man named Isambard, so Explorer goes to pay him a visit. Isambard doesn't really hold any leadership title, but people look to him for support, and he'll do all he can to help see the victims safely returned. Isambard says that the Amalja have been responsible for plenty of harm in these areas, and although the immortal flames have been hard at work, there's only so many of them to go around. Notably, there have been a number of brutal murders of people wishing to pay their respects to the dead at the nearby church. Isambard wants to see the individuals properly buried, but he doesn't know if the Amalja are still lingering around. Explorer heads down the road leading out of Camp Drybone to where the bodies are, finding a couple Amalja still hanging around. After dealing with them and gathering up the victims' bodies, she returns to Isambard. He thanks her for such a noble deed, and says that the Amalja's presence there pretty much confirms their involvement in the recent disappearances. That being said, he suspects there's more going on here than meets the eye, as these small raiding parties would not account for the large number of disappearances at the camp. He suspects that someone else is aiding the Amalja, possibly someone inside the camp, and asks Explorer to begin investigating the locals. A merchant named Ungust was born in this camp, and Isambard remarks that he's a rough character but knows the people here better than anyone else. Heading to the tavern to speak with him, Explorer discovers that Ungust is none other than the merchant that accused the woman of being a thief. Ungust says that the people of Drybone were timid even before the disappearances, and now more so. Speaking with some of the locals, it's clear that Ungust is right, and they aren't interested in sharing anything with Explorer. Ungust doesn't really think anyone's been abducted, more likely that they just left town for a better place. Returning to Isambard empty-handed, he says that he didn't really expect much from Ungust, but he had a thought that since the locals are typically rather religious, the local clergy may have heard something useful. Isambard sends Explorer up the hill to the nearby church to deliver one of the victims' bodies, as well as to potentially find some info. She speaks with a robed man there named Marquez, who tells her to place the body in an empty grave atop the ridge nearby. She proceeds to rather unceremoniously dump the body on the ground, but Marquez tells her to make sure to bury it, otherwise it might get taken away by mongrels. She does as he asks, and proceeds inside the church to speak with a sister, Orson, about the missing individuals. Orson admits that the locals often confide in her, but she doesn't know anything about the disappearances, and she wishes that Marquez was more helpful. Apparently, he witnessed some terrible things during the calamity that have ruined his mind, now preferring the company of the dead over the living. Orson says that a recent visitor named Thancred took offense at his conduct. Explorer once again returns to Isambard empty-handed, but this time Thancred shows up to join her. Thancred has also been gathering information in the area, and believes that Ungust is right in that the locals know something and have only shared it with the clergy. In fact, Thancred goes so far as to accuse Sister Orson of being complicit in the disappearances. Isambard is initially shocked by the suggestion, but he at least tells Explorer to speak with a young boy that she's fond of to try and discern the truth. Explorer heads north to another village called the Golden Bazaar to seek out the boy, who tells her that Sister Orson has gone missing. She had been reading to him when he told her about how he had lost his mother's ring, and she went looking for it on her own. Explorer finds Orson just outside the village, waylaid by some undead, and handily rescues her. Orson thanks her and heads back, with Explorer returning to inform Isambard. He takes this development as proof that Sister Orson is nothing less than devout and honorable, and it seems that Thancred has moved on to other developments. She finds him near an Amalja camp to the east, where he tells her that these Amalja caught his eye, and he wants her to sneak into the camp and search for any clues. Sure enough, she finds a suspicious leaflet on a crate in the camp, which seems to describe some sort of assembly to provide work for the poor, but the sloppy handwriting and odd theological terms lead Thancred to suspect it wasn't written by anyone in the church. Explorer brings it to Sister Orson, who is resting in the inn, who immediately finds the writing in the leaflet to be blasphemous and completely against the church's teachings. She admits that a few weeks ago, some garments went missing from the church, and she wonders if there is someone out there posing as a priest. Speaking again with Isambard, he hasn't seen anything unusual and doesn't have any cause to doubt anyone in the camp. Thancred suggests the idea of himself and Explorer posing as poor refugees in need of aid in order to lure out the false priest. Isambard thinks it's a dangerous but otherwise fine plan and donates some old clothes for the endeavor. Explorer puts on the ratty garments and wanders around the camp, asking for work from the locals. She doesn't find any, as the locals simply brush her off, but one of them mentions that she should join the other poor refugees at a remote commune north of Sandgate. Thancred and her head over there, still in disguise, and wait for the false priest to make an appearance. They are eventually approached by a robed man, who claims to be a priest of Naldthal, but Thancred immediately calls him out and reveals him to be Ungust. Ungust begins whimpering in fear and says he was only doing this to protect his people. He explains that a while back, the Amalja in the area began raiding, plundering, and pillaging at will, and the locals were defenseless. Ungust did the only thing he knew how to as a merchant, and went to the Amalja to broker a deal. In exchange for sparing the people of the Golden Bazaar, the Amalja made a number of demands, starting with the schedule for shipments of crystal from some nearby mines. Then they wanted people, so Ungust began posing as a priest to lure refugees in and hand them over, just so they wouldn't hurt the natives of the Golden Bazaar. Thancred isn't pleased with this excuse, saying that Ungust could have reached out to the Immortal Flames, but since he didn't, he must not be telling the full story. Finally, Ungust admits that the Amalja have simply been paying him too well for him to stop. This only serves to anger Thancred even more, but Ungust doesn't care, telling him that he can't be blamed for the mess the world's in. Despite his actions, Ungust insists that he wasn't involved in telling the Amalja about the Immortal Flames patrol routes. Thancred doesn't really believe him, and plans to interrogate him further, while Explorer returns to Minfilia to inform her of the development. The Amalja are certainly holding the missing individuals, but finding out where exactly might be a little tricky. In the meantime, Minfilia sends Explorer off on a small learning exercise to better prepare her for the future. She sends her to meet with a goblin acquaintance of hers named Mutamix Bubblypots, a scholar of no small repute, as she puts it. To summarize, Mutamix teaches Explorer how to combine materia, essentially concentrated ether, with a piece of equipment in order to enhance its properties. The technique is certainly useful, but as Explorer is still in the process of rapidly changing equipment and acquiring better pieces, it's not really necessary right now. She returns to Minfilia, who has received word from Thancred about the investigation. He successfully extracted some more info from Ungust, who revealed that he has a meeting planned with the Amalja to discuss their dealings. The Immortal Flames plan to ambush the meeting, capture the Amalja responsible, and hopefully recover the missing individuals. Consequently, they have requested the support of the Scions, and so Explorer is sent along as the sole representative of the group, with Thancred hopefully joining her later. Explorer travels back to Camp Drybone to speak with the Flame Sergeant running the mission. The Sergeant thanks her for coming, and explains the fairly simple mission. When the Amalja show up for the meeting, they'll jump out and capture some of them so that they can be interrogated for the location of the victims. Since an ambush only works with a small group, they requested the aid of the highly talented Scions to be a part of it. The meeting is taking place in a section to the north of Camp Drybone called the Invisible City. As the Amalja arrive and approach Ungust, the flames jump out from hiding alongside Explora and brandish their weapons. Unfortunately, Ungust reveals that he had a man inside the flames supplying him with info, and the Amalja came prepared for the ambush, bringing in a large amount of troops. The ambush quickly turns into a fight for survival as Ungust runs off, and Explora begins slaughtering the beastmen. Although the Amalja brought a great number of soldiers, the Immortal Flames brought a warrior of light, so the odds are fairly even. Ultimately, one of the flames gets held hostage, and the traitor orders the others to drop their weapons. While distracted, one of the Amalja launches a sleep spell at Explora, knocking her out. When she wakes, she finds herself in a cave with the flames tied up, and together they are brought to a ritual site, where the Amalja succeed in summoning their primal, the Lord of Cinders, Ifrit. The head Amalja asks Ifrit to scorch these heathen souls with his cleansing flame and mark them as his own. The Amalja bring in Ungust and the traitor flame as well. Ifrit then blasts the group with a blue flame, which seems to have no effect whatsoever on Explora, but the others immediately become as if possessed, praising Ifrit as their one true god. The Amalja are shocked to find Explora unchanged, but the leader suspects that someone else already has claim to her soul. Ifrit says that mortals can only serve as a vessel to the blessing of one deity at a time, but he doesn't smell the taint of another primal on her, so he suspects that she is of the godless blessed's number, warned of by the Paragons. It's clear that Explora's connection to Hydaelyn and the crystals is protecting her, leaving her no choice but to defend herself against Ifrit's fiery onslaught. Fortunately, it seems that this protection is not completely limited to Explora, and a few of the other kidnapped victims are also protected from Ifrit's power. They join Explora in combat, as Ifrit lets loose with a spectacular display of fury and fire. Through their combined efforts, however, they manage to defeat the Primal, dismissing him from this realm until he's summoned once again. Explora finds a red crystal on the ground in the aftermath, and experiences another vision of the six-pointed symbol, 2 of the 6 slots now filled in. Thancred, unfortunately late once again, arrives and apologizes to Explora for the veritable baptism of fire that she just went through. The group leaves the area as the Garlean Nero Tolskeva watches over the scene, commenting on what a disappointment the battle was. He had apparently been here to take some sort of readings of the summoning. He's accompanied by a female Garlean, Livia Sesjunius, who tells him that they can't expect any form of support from back home, with all of the trouble they're having currently. Livia says that they've just wasted time here since Nero is using an ancient meter to get a reading, and Nero ultimately agrees, although he says at least they achieved their primary objective. He is troubled by Explora's unexpected show of strength, and ponders if she could prove a hindrance to their plans, but Livia simply tells him to focus on the task he's been given, or he'll be punished. Back in Camp Drybone, Explora speaks with Thancred, who tells her that the Amalja will be lying low for a while now. He apologizes again for being late, both for being unable to help her, as well as helping the victims. The individuals that were affected by Ifrit's flames have undergone something referred to as tempering, where their minds have been completely taken over, and all they can think about is worshipping the primal responsible. Regardless, he heartily congratulates her for slaying Ifrit, and tells her to take a well-deserved rest before returning to the Waking Sands. It indeed was a rather tremendous victory for someone as fresh as Explora, with no small thanks to Hydaelyn's blessing for protecting her from the tempering. One primal has been temporarily defeated, which hopefully will quell the Amalja for some time, But since each city-state of Eorzea is plagued by beastmen and their attempts to summon their deities, the Primal Threat is far from over. The Scions seem like a trustworthy and honorable enough group, but they are far too few, while Eorzea's troubles are far too many. Explora is quickly developing a reputation as one of the most capable allies that the people of Eorzea have, but she's only one woman, and especially with the Garlean Empire plotting something in the shadows, she may not be enough. Regardless, she celebrates her victory today and takes her rest, as there's no doubt the Scions will have more work for her very soon.